So welcome to our 12th virtual Miro user group event and our last one for 2020. So my name is John White. I'm a management consultant based in Calgary, Alberta in Canada, and I'm a Miro addict. My company, Improved Consulting Group, does operational excellence and continuous improvement, anything to do with making systems and processes better than where they are today. And I've just found so much power in Miro as a tool to be able to conduct work in a much more efficient and collaborative way with my clients. And to that end, I'm very pleased to announce that just yesterday I got word that my first submission to the Miroverse had been accepted. So you can find the cross-functional flowchart template in there, and it's a pretty cool one. It's got some instructions. It's got a little bit of a guide on how to analyze your process flow when you're done creating your first flowchart. So go check that out. I would love to hear any feedback you've got on that, and watch out for some cool ones coming up in the future to support any kind of process improvement efforts at your work. And as always, and you've already heard from her, is Annie McLeod with me tonight.
Yeah, I'm a project management consultant based in beautiful Kelowna, BC, in the Okanagan Valley. And I'm also one of the founders of the Project Management Game Board. That it's a tool that we use to teach project management to senior execs and to build culture as the core of project successes. And we use Miro as a training tool and a training platform. And we're also continually finding ways to apply Miro in clients with their particular projects and to leverage their collaboration in their project teams.
Yeah.
So I, just like John, drank the Miro Kool-Aid as well.
So this is our last event of 2020. I'm pretty sure most of us will be happy to put 2020 behind us. But the one constant that I keep coming back to is the amazing people and the collaboration that's come out of everything that's happened this year. So, you know, the fact that I have an opportunity to be in some ways a leader and a contributor to the Miro community, I'm just constantly inspired by all the amazing work that I see out there. And I think I enjoy being part of collaboration as much as I enjoy creating new ways that people can collaborate together. So it's nice to be on both end of things. And we're really excited for what's going to be coming in the new year. Annie and Natalie and I are working really hard to make sure that we keep bringing great speakers, keep adding new things to these events so that everyone keeps getting a lot out of it. And we want to have everybody getting engaged and involved as much as possible. We found the events over the past year, when we have the interactive component, it's a way better experience for everybody. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's here tonight and who has been to the past events before. You're a constant inspiration to me. You make me always want to be doing better. I'm always learning from all of you. And so from our family to yours, we wish you all the best happiness, health, and prosperity coming up over the next couple of weeks as we wind down 2020. And fingers crossed there's no more disasters. Hey, can we be done with all that? That'd be great. Okay. Now's the time we've been waiting for. So Rob Johnson is our speaker for tonight. He's an Agile Business Analyst with the Co-operators, and he's been a Miro user for right around the 3-year mark, maybe even slightly longer, back when it was called Real-Time Board. Rob's one of the most active members of the Miro community. If you've been in there and you've had a problem, you've likely had him either solve it for you or be second to comment and get some great feedback in there. He's written some of the most well-detailed posts around some back-end functionality, around some security and sharing features that I've ever seen. He's a wealth of information in Miro, and he's just a great person to talk to. So his talk tonight is going to include a little bit about his journey of how he found Miro, became the champion for it, and started to work within his organization and see it kind of spread around. And that's a story that certainly resonates with me because it pretty accurately describes Annie and my Miro journey, where we just started playing around, got a little bit better, started to introduce, and everyone sees the power once you run through some pretty nifty workshops. So that's enough for us talking for right now. Let's flip it over to Rob, and I'll just stop sharing, Rob, so you can take over the Zoom share and walk us through things.
So first of all, yes, thanks to Annie and John for inviting me to speak at this event. This is my first time speaking at anything like this online, especially. It was good to see as well up near the top that there's a few people that aren't using it in their organization. So that's good. When I think about some of the things I've done with Miro, they seem quite simple, yet they are effective. And when I've shown some people some of my boards that I put together and things that we've done, they have found it interesting. So I hope you do as well. As John pointed out, it's been just about 3 years that I've been using Miro, and I started to then experiment with capturing and communicating information visually versus textually. And I'll say as well that there's a lot here that I'm going to go through in my presentation. I'm going to talk about some different techniques and topics, but I try to include links to everything at the bottom below. And it's my understanding this board is going to be active for a while after today, a few weeks, it sounds like. So, and I also put my LinkedIn information, my email address, so feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. Just maybe absorb what you can, come back, browse around, have a look, reach out if you have any questions. So yeah, my goals here would just be, I want to show you some of the things that I've done to give you some ideas and how it can help facilitate almost any discussion. And also that it's kind of one place to compile a bunch of information, but I'll get into that here. So I'll start a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Kingston, Ontario, a couple hours away from Toronto. My background is primarily electrical and computer hardware and a bit of web development. 12 years ago, I moved to Regina, Saskatchewan, where I am a business analyst on a software and service delivery team. About 8 months ago, I got involved with the Miro community. I went and I posted my first question on the community. And if for those who are not on there, I encourage you to check it out. There's links below after the presentation. And it's been amazing for not only helping share my knowledge with others, but learning as I go. I'm always learning new tips and tricks. And maybe more on a personal note, I do enjoy a craft beer. John knows this. We've been in different virtual meetings and he's watched me crack a beer. A little less now that it's not as warm out. I play guitar for a little over 30 years. And the last one, I like making soap. I liked using natural soap and I figured it can't be that hard and I like process. So I learned how to make it and yeah. So discovering Miro. For myself, it'll be 3 years this March where I had to map out a process. And of course, in our organization, we all have Visio installed. I'd used it a couple times. I opened it up. I looked at the little tiny space on the screen. I tried to make it bigger. I just knew I was going to run out of space and be frustrated. So I closed it. I jumped on Google and I think what I searched for was online whiteboard. And there was real-time board. I still like to give a shout out to it until they went through a rebranding and it's now known as Miro. And right away, just from 5-10 minutes of playing with it, I was blown away, not only with my background in web development and that I'm a nerd and I like technology, but just anything I could think of that I wanted it to do when it came to copying, pasting, cutting, moving, dragging, zooming, putting stuff in the board from other places. It just did it. And so I was immediately hooked and addicted and gave me some ideas right away. So I started to learn about it and experiment and then share that with anybody who would listen in the organization. So now I'm going to talk about a first example of how we used it. And this is basically where it was the first time we took what we had traditionally done as a physical process, moved it into Miro, and it helped us basically be more efficient and inclusive because there was individuals who were not always in the office. So those who are familiar with the user story mapping technique, we were meeting with some business folks to talk about putting their process into a workflow system. So we met in a big meeting room, put up the paper on the wall, got out the stickies. Of course, I had to blur out a bunch of this for corporate reasons. But we walk through users' activities of what they do, the different tasks and the details. And of course, then these yellow stickies would end up being things that we would build. And this was the first time we met in this room. And traditionally, we would have then had to peel that off the wall. People have probably seen that too. Everybody all careful. You got 5 people standing around trying to get it off the wall, not lose any stickies, roll it up, store it somewhere, and then repeat a number of times. Go find another room, put it up. But I knew I didn't want to do that. So I went back to my desk and I virtualized the whole board. I think this was before the sticky capture that has the optical character recognition, but you could take a picture of these stickies, capture, and it'll convert them onto your Miro board for you. So one thing to keep in mind is just be neat with your writing, as neat as you can, and keep them spaced out properly. It'll help you down the road. And so once I got this whole board virtualized, we went through this process here about 5-6 times and making changes to this. And it was great being on the board because I had this picture on the Miro board right here. But then every iteration as we worked through this, it was just copy, paste, infinite space. We had a history of everything we had talked about. And what we would have done in the past would have been to take that paper, book a meeting room, find a room that's empty, find a room that's big enough, find a time when everybody's in the office and set it all up. But luckily, we had also been going through an agile transformation in our organization where they took the BAs and the developers and actually put us together, which made sense. Previously, I felt like I had to book a meeting to talk to a developer. And so I decided, no, this time I'm going to invite our stakeholders right into our pod. And we had a TV in there. So I sat beside the TV, projected my laptop up onto the TV, and we all focused on the board. And as people had questions, made comments, I just moved things around. I added comments onto the stickies, just there, just like that, to track everything that we talked about. And then at the beginning too, this was just myself. It wasn't that I found this tool and I said to my whole team, okay, everybody grab a Miro account and we're all going to be in here doing this. No, it was still effective for myself to be doing the driving. So after we worked through this a number of times, now we had our features prioritized with the business, their features, and we went off, we built them. And then finally, this was on the 4th of July. We had the different phases and everything that was going to be implemented. And this was literally the first example too of, at this point, a couple of the other team members had gotten in there. One of them has a pug. It was July 4th. They like to have fun with these sorts of things. So suddenly this pug appeared. Yeah, so that was our first example of using Miro with our business stakeholders. And right away, at this point, when we finished up the very first time of inviting these people to our pod, it was a couple things. Like they're used to just going to the meeting rooms and seeing somebody, a few people stand up at the front, maybe put some stickies on a board. The people that don't feel comfortable wouldn't get involved, or we would have just had the initial capture of their process, and we would have been in a meeting room and we would have had Word projected up on a screen, and they would have just watched somebody be typing out bullet points of, it will then do this, and we need to do this. And so right away they said, and this is done, they just said that, great, thanks, this was awesome to be involved in this process, to come here to see this. And yeah, it was great to get that feedback from them, to see them be more involved. So the second example, and this was the first time where we had the business stakeholder who had a change they needed, a new letter that was going to go out to clients, and they were actually in Guelph and we're in Regina, Saskatchewan. And so there was business stakeholders across the country, our team, but also 2 other teams. So there's 4 parties involved. Our team was going to look after generating the letters and storing the letters. Another team was going to have to be the ones to print them, put them in the envelopes, and another team was handling first getting the data out of the business stakeholder system. So here's what we had. At the very top, we had the business. They're using Trello, And then between the three teams, we all had different systems as a way to track our work and our to-dos that we had. So again, we started capturing what needed to be done here. You've probably seen this before. It's, somebody opens up Word and starts typing out the steps that are going to be involved. And it was after the first meeting, I realized, no, there's probably going to be a more effective way. So I loaded up a Miro board and I started to capture. I've had to, of course, make some changes here so it doesn't look exactly like we had it, but essentially then we could walk through and talk about this. The first team was going to get the data and they were going to put it on the network for our team to pick up and use the letter generation system, outputting all of them as one large PDF, put back onto the LAN to go back to another team. As the first iteration, ideally, everything would go into our document management storage system, but this was our first go at it. And again, what might have been more effective is for us, we actually had our systems in here. So when somebody would see the icon, the actual icon, I went to a Google image search right from within the Miro board, did a search for the software name, dragged the icon on. Even our team has our own logo for our team. And our print services area, all the way down to having the letter. So it helped people make those connections right away, just from glancing at these images. So we worked through here, and what was also beneficial was with everybody in different systems, I was able to paste in links for them to their workflow systems right on the board so they quickly had something they needed to look at. They didn't have to go off to their browser, load up a link and browse to their system. They could just click on the link here. Most of us didn't have access, but that was fine. I also had a link to a SharePoint with a OneDrive link in here for an Excel spreadsheet that, we tried to do as much as we could visually on the board, but there's still those finer details like the XML file and the fields that were going to be in there. It made more sense to look in a document, but again, we were able to put them in here. The first draft of the letter from this team here would have been our document and print team, who's also responsible for generating, looking after the letter logos and letterhead and creating the envelopes for us. So they sent the first draft of the PDF. I think I took a screenshot at that point. I had it up on my one monitor. I just took a screenshot. I dumped it in. Of course, you can put a whole PDF in here and you can extract 2 pages even. But we started highlighting, putting comments, putting a sticky note here, maybe with some information. I think I had a pending stamp on here before it was actually ready. When it was done, I could just put approved, working through the envelope specifications, the window location, everything else. And then of course, in part of the process, when this was done, it's going to be mailed out by our postal delivery service to our client. So what this did, when you look at this compared to this, this of course is easier to follow and it was more engaging. It supports visual thinking. There's a post again, sorry, a link to a post down in my links section to a blog post on Miro site. And when I first started doing this, I knew it was having an impact and people liked doing it. But when I read this blog post about visual thinking, it made so much more sense that the idea there is that if you can take anything and get it out onto an external display, you can offload that mental load of trying to visualize it and think about maybe changes. So to get that out, take a step back, that was also, maybe going to help with driving out inefficiencies, just looking at this saying, oh, well, maybe if this team here, team 3, could actually do this, they could get the work quicker than waiting for team 2 to send it here, just one example. It became a single source of the truth for mainly the business stakeholder. That was great for them because in the past, again, they had their one system Trello, but they didn't have access to our Azure DevOps and another team's Microsoft Planner. When they wanted an update, they'd have to reach out to, if it was a project at that time, it would have been the project manager. Maybe it was our Agile team lead, Scrum Master, whoever. But now we share this link to everybody as view only, at least, so they could pop it up at any time and read the comments, see what was going on, where things were at. And plus, we had somebody come back from maternity leave, and she actually sat right behind me, and she was given one piece of work, showed up in our Azure DevOps saying, add the new letter template to the workflow system. And she just turned around. She's a big picture thinker, and she said, Rob, what is this for? Like, I don't like just doing work just because it's there. And so I sent her a link to the board, even though she was sitting right behind me, and we both looked at it, watched each other's cursors, and it was 3 or 4 minutes. She understood the whole thing, had no more questions, and thanked me. Said, great, this is awesome, makes sense. Yeah, and again, it was just nice to have this place to put all this information and have the one place, one-stop shop, instead of having a PDF open that was an image of the letter, one that was the envelope, a link to a SharePoint, a link to our Azure DevOps site with our work item. No, it was just always one place that we could meet. So third and final example. So this will carry on from the first one, where, well, here, I'm just going to get rid of this. So as we worked through building out the items of work with the business through their process, doing this user story map, we eventually come to what is going to be a work item for us, our user story, where we need to build something. And I wanted to use a new technique. For those that are familiar with behavioral driven design, some of these agile principles, again, if not, link down below, you can take a look at it. Instead of the traditional world of waterfall software, where I go off and I meet with the business and I write everything down, and then I take it, make it look nice, and I take it back, give it to the developer, they build it, and they're just taking my word on it. I mean, yes, I've validated things with the business, but still, it's all largely based upon words. And the developer builds it, I test it, give it to somebody, and then they're like, no, what? So one of the practices we're doing with this behavioral driven development and the practice of acceptance test driven development is to bring everybody together to be more collaborative and to basically, as they say, clarify and confirm the acceptance criteria, improve the communication, and build that shared understanding and using that common language. So we'll get, typically it's the developer, the BA who's going to be testing, and the business person. And you might have heard of this referred to as three amigos. Example mapping now, workshop, specification workshop, etc. But the idea is applying some structure to this meeting, because we had done it before. And what happens is we throw down the user story, which is, I need to click a button to send something off to somewhere, to somebody to do something. And somebody starts putting, well, I should be the only person to do that. Plus somebody on my team, example, who's on your team. But then you get to the question, somebody's like, well, what about this? The developer, based upon their perspective of building these things, they see a possibility that nobody else thought of. They ask a question, nobody knows, and everybody goes down the rabbit hole trying to figure out what that is. So what this technique does is say we're going to pick one item, we're going to time box it to 30 minutes. The first 5 minutes will be just maybe some intros and putting some context and framing what the story is. And if you do get to a question, as a facilitator of the discussion, which would be myself in most cases, we have these, I have to know then, okay, no, you know what, this doesn't need to be answered right now. We're going to take and put that on this other sticky. So when I went to do this, I didn't have, they're typically done on those index cards, like for recipes, whatnot, 3x5 inch index cards. I didn't have those. I didn't want to buy them. I saw that was a waste. I cut some up out of old file folders. I went to the first meeting to do it, and my handwriting is horrible. So I butchered them. They were terrible. And after I went back to my desk and I looked at these and I said, I'm never doing this again. And so I put them onto Miro cards. And it was actually perfect, because the next time we went to do this, one of the individuals, they worked from home part-time. They were not available. I was not going to be able to get them. And doing it with physical cards was just not going to be an option. So, here's an example. We don't have to go into the details if you want to come back and look at this, and as well, look at the link later about this technique. But just to give another demonstration of how once these things were in Miro, we were able to carry on with our work. If I shift, click and drag, I select all of these. Oh, wait, John, you got them locked, buddy. And do you want me to bring you to me? I guess I can't. You got it? All right, so I select these. Thank you. I'm going to Alt, click and drag, same as duplicating. Now I've got duplicates of these down here, and I can click on this to switch the type, and I'm going to change them to cards. And I'm going to drag those cards into here. And now that they're in here, this might be, zoom in for everybody, the way we could work, and we can decide, we want to add a due date. We are going to assign a user. I don't have anybody show up because I'm just on the board as a guest. Yeah, but you can put that information on these. Plus, you can open them up and put in even more details. There's formatting options and everything. And now if somebody takes that item, they can move it through the process. So that was a benefit, another benefit, just one of them, of putting them into the board. And so finally, after going through all of this and figuring out, there, I get rid of this. Annie, John, and myself put together a few tips here of some things to remember that might help if you want to start to get Miro into your organization. So definitely to start driving yourself, getting familiar with it, you could even use it for something like a PowerPoint. You can use these frames, put your information in, you can go over to the frames panel, you can put them in whatever order you like, and then you can actually start a presentation where it's going to fly through the frames. And even just doing that, some people have found that interesting, that sort of non-linear approach of being able to move around. And in the middle of your presentation, you could even stop and go in and start adding things in sticky notes. So that's just one example. And again, maybe just with your team, immediate team, get some of them in there, maybe for something fun, like an icebreaker at the beginning of a meeting, or if you're doing any kind of agile ceremonies, the retrospective is just the team typically. Do it for, especially right now in this time of the pandemic, team building event for a little bit of fun. Right now, we've got a bunch of Christmas trees and decorations, and we're going to decorate trees and have a table with dinner and have some gifts hidden in, or presents hidden underneath some hidden frames, reveal them later. All sorts of fun you can do with it there. But that, I think, is it in a nutshell. I flew through a lot, and I think I'm actually right on time, John, for
you're doing
discussed.
Good. Yeah. So let's, I know we've been getting some questions for Rob and in general. Oh my God, there's a ton of questions. Okay, so just before we field those, let's, Rob, you want to give me, stop sharing so I can take that back?
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's all good. So let's do a quick activity. So, Rob is really focusing on how doing things visually instead of doing the bullet Word document that everyone kind of sits back and watches. Things are much more effective when we start to collaborate together. So with little to no context, I'm going to pull everybody to me. I'm going to unlink this activity. So let's do a visual collaboration activity. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through a recent experience of mine with ordering a product. As I'm describing it, I'd like all of you, and you won't be able to communicate audibly, I would like all of you to use the white space where it says use this space, and make use of the icon finder, of the image search, of sticky notes, anything that you can think of that Miro has to offer, and try and document my story as we're talking. So if you want to write details on dates that I mention, and while other people are focusing on icons that are relevant to what's going on, I figure we could walk through a very, very easy kind of customer experience map that comes out with some knowledge at the end of the day. So if you're not familiar with how to do the image search or the icon finder, once again, up top, there is a little bit of a tutorial. They're both found on your left-hand menu. When you click on the three dots, the ellipses at the bottom of that left-hand menu, you should see icon finder and Google image search. From there, it should be pretty self-explanatory. We've also given you some assets to get started. So there are some stickies, there are some emojis, there are a couple of icons, though they might not be the best ones. All right, so here we go. I'm going to start my story. I'll go through this twice too, just to give everyone an opportunity to make sure that this map is refined. So I searched for a gift online, and it was a horse riding helmet. On September the 12th, I found the one I wanted and I placed an order, and it was pretty easy. I was pretty happy about that. So then after that, on September the 14th, my order was packaged and sent out. On September the 16th, my order arrived, but I wasn't home. So that order was taken to a distribution center by the delivery company. And I had to drive 30 minutes each way to get it. I was not happy. And then I got it home, gave it to my lovely partner, Natalie, for her birthday, and it didn't fit. So there's a local store, and but they won't permit me to return it to them locally. So on September the 25th, I requested a replacement online, and I was happy with that customer service experience. On September the 28th, I packaged up the helmet and sent it back at my own cost. I paid for my own shipping, including insurance, because they required that. On October the 5th, that company received my returned helmet. On October the 14th, they processed my replacement order. On October the 30th, they provided a shipping confirmation. And on November the 5th, I received the order, I was home, and it fit. Okay, so I'll run through that one more time really quickly. Not really quickly, but at a medium pace. How about that? So I searched online for a horse riding helmet. On September the 12th, I found it and placed the order, and I was very pleased with that experience. On September 14, the order was packaged and shipped to me. On September the 16th, the order arrived, but I was not home. That order was taken to a distribution center by the delivery company. And I had to drive 30 minutes each way to get it. Grr. Displeasure. Then I got it home and the helmet did not fit. You guys are awesome, by the way. On September 25th, I requested a replacement online, and the customer service rep was very pleasant. September 28th, I packaged the helmet and sent it back at my own dime. October the 5th, the company received my returned helmet. On October 14, they processed my replacement order. On October 30th, they provided shipping confirmation. And on November 5th, I got my order and there was much rejoicing. All right. So let's have a peek. Oh my God, someone found my picture here. That's wicked. And someone drew me as well. Excellent. I'm keeping that, by the way, that drawing of me. That's mine. Love the horse helmet too. Oh my God. So gift search, September 12th, placed order, 14th. I got the emojis. Good use of that. Falling Down. You know what? That absolutely makes me think of Falling Down. Great movie, underrated movie with Michael Douglas.
Man, we've got a whole bunch of budding business analysts in our midst.
Oh, this is so good. I would say this. This picture with me with the hard hat on, money. That's great. That's great. And there was much rejoicing. All right, whoever got that Monty Python, that's good. I'd say that's a really great capture. And whoever's putting in this calendar with the timelines in the comments, that's another great way to do it. So, and okay, so we also have this emoji tracker down near the bottom, where you can see my kind of my mood as things were going through here, and this big rejoicing first thing at the end, and victory is so good. So we actually took a little bit of time. What an amazing exercise activity to do. This is great. I hope that was as fun for you as it was for me. We put together just a really quick version down below that I'll unlock. It's a little more linear, but to your credit anyway, we had a little bit more time to prep for this. But these are some of the icons that we used. And you know, I've been able to draw from a few of even the Miroverse tools that are out there right now for customer experience mapping. There's some amazing ones. I really like the one, and I won't be able to tell you which it is now because I don't have it in front of me, but where they had the emojis going by colored lanes, just to make it even more clear as to how the customer experience is at these various segments. And some of the key dates, you guys were really great at capturing those. I think that was really important. And the tone of my experience. And so now this would lead a company, I believe, to, you know, when examining things a little bit more, the only time I'd say where I was really, really mad about this was when the delivery company took it up to the airport distribution center. And that's not the fault of the company who sold me the helmet. So you know, there'll be a lot of lessons that you'll be able to learn from that experience, in making sure that you're addressing the right issues, ones that are within your control. So thanks so much to everybody for your participation here. This is this is a huge highlight for me. Wonderful, wonderful. All right.
That is a classic.
All right. You want to take us down the final stretch, Annie, and we'll go to some questions?
Yeah, why don't we try and do that? So what I've done just for people's benefit, and we'll go through, we may not get through all of these questions, so we will post some answers back on this board if we don't get to them. And also, I've highlighted ones in blue that John and I can take, but I think we'll start with answering the yellow ones. So to get Rob's feedback specifically on that. So Rob, for new users, how many minutes are needed to get started in a meeting for to use Miro?
Well, I definitely wouldn't suggest like going into the meeting saying, okay, we want to spend some time in this meeting getting used to Miro. I would create for them a basic board, a playground, something with some instructions. You can find on the Miroverse template site. And actually, I linked down below to one that I put together a while ago. But it can be as simple as just here's a frame and some instructions of put some stickies on here and put text, because that's probably the objects that are used the most. And even what John had done over on the side there, where we had the icons and a bunch of stickies, you know, once you're used to using Miro, it may seem simple to just click on the sticky icon or use the N key on your keyboard to make a new sticky. But if you can throw a whole bunch up there for people and just sort of click and grab and go, and you could even make a bunch ahead of time. And if you have a paid account, you could save it as a custom template. So you could anytime just grab some more and dump them on the board very quickly. But back to sort of the original question of minutes and time, I'd say that if somebody was to spend 10 or 15 minutes on a board dedicated to playing with it, they should be all right. And on that board as well, you might want to link them to the Miro Academy. It's academy.miro.com. And there's I think, getting to know Miro, learning Miro. The first section is just 2 videos that are like a minute and a half each, watch those. You can embed videos right in the board to share with them. But yeah, again, I'd say after 10 or 15 minutes, that should be good.
Great, thanks, Rob. How about some guidance on prep time versus session time? So if you have, you know, like an hour meeting, how much time would you typically spend to get ready for that meeting?
It depends on what you're doing on the board, really. Like,
Mm-hmm.
again, if it's going to be more about the discussion and the conversation, and it may just be a simple brainstorming exercise with stickies, maybe a mind map, I may only have to spend 5 or 10 minutes to get ready for that. But if it's going to be any other session involving multiple people, again, it depends on the participants and how elaborate I want to go. Yeah, it's tough to answer that one. And that was sort of something I wanted to highlight here too. I don't know if I said that at the beginning, just that maybe what some people might find intimidating with Miro too, when you see a lot of these videos on Miro's website, on their LinkedIn, you know, these huge elaborate boards, like so detailed and tons of stuff and all these people moving around. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, just to make use of it. Like from the one diagram I did of the process, working with a few other teams, that was still very effective and didn't require a lot of work. But as for time too, John, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that, because you have done some bigger sessions.
Yeah, I mean, there are big complicated things you can do, creating activities that take hours and hours of prep. But with that being created, once you have it, then it's easy to kind of make some tweaks to get it ready for your next workshop. So it's like a steep hill you got to climb, but once you're at the top of the hill, it's easy to get into. It's hard to master it, but then once you start to get that, it saves you a little bit of time on the end as you build your library and your experience in using Miro, and then leverage people like Rob and like Annie and myself within the community. We can help you get set up for things. You know, it often helps just to think about what you want to cover in the workshop and then try and figure out the simplest way to do it. And think about it as, you know, when you have people you're just going to have come and collaborate and fill in some blanks that you're setting up for them, keep it as simple as you can for those new Miro users. And when you start to have more experienced Miro users in the room with you, you can start to get more creative with how you're doing things.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too, John. I guess in my experience, having facilitated a lot over the years, is I always used a kind of a formula of, for a 1 hour session, spend about half an hour of time to prep for it, and probably spend for each hour of the meeting 2 to 3 hours. At the end, you know, the outputs, the documentation, and all that stuff. Whereas what I found with Miro is there is more work on the front end to do that prep. So if you've got a 1 hour session, you might spend anywhere between 15 minutes, maybe an hour if you're getting elaborate, you know, and creating something very, very customized. But almost all of that 2 to 3 hours after a workshop of documentation and communication, that almost goes to zero. I mean, that's what the real power of Miro is you could just point people to the outputs from that workshop, as opposed to spending all your time doing on all that documentation.
And frames as well. I just throw in a tip of it. Frames are great for so many reasons, but they'll containerize things, which helps draw people to where they need to be. You can change the background color. You can use them as slides. You can use them in the frames panel, even for yourself, to jump around to them more quickly. And then when you're done, you can export your session as frames, as PDFs or images. If you export the whole board as PDF, it'll make each frame its own page in the order that they show up in the frames pane. So
yeah, good point. So one more question, and then I'm going to point people just to the retrospective and stuff, and we'll find ways to answer the rest of them. But one specifically, Rob, you decided not to use presentation mode today. Why not?
I think it was because this overall template that is used by, I think it's all the virtual Miro users groups. It was put together, provided by Miro, was it not?
Yeah, we've kind of designed it over time. Yep.
Yeah,
okay,
we've
yep.
collaborated on it. Yeah.
Sure. And so when I looked at it and I had this one long presentation pane frame, I just I just started putting things in there knowing that I'm just going to click and move left to right and didn't need to necessarily jump, because even if I was in presentation mode, I'm going to want to move around. I'm going to click and I'm going to go out of presentation mode anyways. So that's why.
Yeah, great.